You said you'd stay, Emma whispers, her voice breaking as she watches Marcus disappear into the crowd with another woman on his arm. The ballroom suddenly feels enormous around her, hundreds of elegantly dressed vampires swirling in their midnight finery, while she stands frozen in her borrowed dress, utterly alone. The Crimson Moon Ball, the most exclusive supernatural gathering in the city, and she's been abandoned at the center of it all. Emma clutches her small, beaded purse tighter, her knuckles white against the silver clasp. The delicate fabric of her midnight blue gown, a dress she'd saved 3 months of tips to afford, suddenly feels like a costume she has no right to wear. Around her, conversations flow in multiple languages, some she recognizes, others that seem to carry the weight of centuries. Poor thing, she hears someone murmur behind her. Doesn't she know Marcus always trades up during the evening? Heat floods her cheeks. Emma takes a shaky step backward, desperate to find somewhere to hide, when her heel catches in the hem of her dress. She stumbles, arms flailing, certain she's about to crash to the marble floor in front of everyone. But instead of cold stone, she finds herself caught against something solid and warm. Careful there. The voice is deep, resonant, with just a hint of an accent she can't place. Strong hands steady her, and she looks up to find herself staring into the most striking pair of silver eyes she's ever seen. The man holding her is tall, easily over 6 feet, with dark hair that's perfectly styled, but looks like he's run his fingers through it. His tuxedo is impeccably cut, clearly custom-made, and there's something about the way he carries himself that makes everyone else in the room seem to fade into the background. Thank you, Emma manages, acutely aware that his hands are still on her waist. I'm sorry, I was just... Leaving? His eyebrow arches, and there's something almost amused in his expression. That would be unfortunate. The evening's just beginning. Emma glances around the ballroom, searching for any sign of Marcus, but he's nowhere to be seen. Probably already left with his new companion. The humiliation burns fresh in her throat. I think it's over for me, she says quietly. My date seems to have found other entertainment. Before we continue, please subscribe. My mom says I can't hit 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, so prove her wrong. Okay, let's continue. The stranger's silver eyes darken slightly. Marcus Delacroix? When Emma nods, his jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. His loss, then. Though I suspect he'll regret it before the night is through. There's something in his tone that makes Emma study his face more carefully. He's handsome in a way that seems almost dangerous. Sharp cheekbones, a mouth that looks like it was made for both smiling and delivering cutting remarks. But it's his eyes that hold her. They're looking at her like she's the only person in the room. I should go, Emma says, taking a small step back. His hands drop from her waist, but he doesn't move away. I don't really belong here anyway, don't you? He tilts his head slightly, studying her with an intensity that makes her pulse quicken. What makes you think that? Emma laughs, but there's no humor in it. Look around, everyone here is... She gestures vaguely at the crowd. Important, powerful. I serve coffee for a living. And I've been alive for over 3 centuries, the stranger replies matter-of-factly. Does that make me more worthy of being here than you? The casual admission that he's a vampire should probably frighten her, but somehow it doesn't. Maybe because she's been living in this world long enough to recognize the signs, the otherworldly beauty, the way he moves with predatory grace, the subtle aura of power that seems to emanate from him. It makes you belong in their world, Emma says softly. I'm just visiting. Before he can respond, a server approaches with a tray of champagne. The stranger takes 2 glasses, offering one to Emma. Perhaps, he says, but visiting doesn't mean you can't enjoy yourself. May I? He extends his free hand toward her. Emma stares at his hand. Long fingers, no jewelry except for what looks like a signet ring with an intricate family crest. I don't even know your name. Alexander, he says simply. And you're Emma. She blinks in surprise. How did you... Lucky guess. There's that almost smile again. So, Emma, will you dance with me? The smart thing would be to politely decline, find her coat, and call an Uber home to her tiny studio apartment. Return to her real life of early morning shifts and late-night study sessions for her nursing degree. Forget about Marcus. Forget about trying to fit into a world that clearly doesn't want her. But there's something about Alexander that makes her want to be brave for once in her life. "I'm not very good at it," she warns, placing her hand in his. "Then I'll lead." Alexander guides her onto the dance floor as a waltz begins, the orchestra's music filling the grand ballroom. His hand settles on the small of her back, and Emma is acutely aware of how perfectly her hand fits in his. "Better?" he asks as they begin to move together. Emma nods, surprised by how natural it feels. Alexander is an excellent dancer, leading with just enough pressure to guide her, but never making her feel controlled. Around them, other couples swirl in elaborate gowns and perfect tuxedos, but Emma finds herself focusing entirely on the man holding her. "You're staring," Alexander observes, his lips quirking upward. "Sorry." Emma feels her cheeks warm. "It's just, you're not what I expected when I came here tonight." "What did you expect?" Emma considers this as they turn in a slow circle. "Honestly, I expected to spend the evening pretending to understand conversations about stock portfolios and European art collections while Marcus showed me off like a novelty." Alexander's expression darkens slightly. "Is that how he made you feel? Like a novelty?" The question is asked quietly, but there's something underneath it that makes Emma look at him more carefully. "Sometimes. Like I was something he collected because I was different from his usual type." "And what is his usual type?" "Vampire royalty, usually. Or at least old money supernatural families." Emma realizes how bitter she sounds and tries to soften it. "I'm sure I'm being unfair. Maybe he just..." "Emma." Alexander stops dancing, his hand moving to cup her chin gently. "You don't have to make excuses for someone who abandoned you." The simple statement, delivered with such quiet conviction, nearly undoes her. Emma has spent the last hour making excuses for Marcus in her own head, trying to rationalize his behavior, wondering what she did wrong. "I barely know you," she whispers. "Why do you care?" Alexander is quiet for a long moment, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone in a gesture so tender it makes her breath catch. "Because," he says finally, "I recognize something in you that most people in this room have forgotten they ever had." "What's that?" "Authenticity." His silver eyes are serious now, no trace of that earlier amusement. "You're real, Emma. In a world full of people playing roles, you're just yourself." The waltz ends, but neither of them moves away. Emma is acutely aware of how close they're standing, of the way Alexander's hand is still cradling her face. "Alexander!" A smooth voice interrupts them, and Emma turns to see an elegant vampire woman approaching. She's stunning in the way only centuries-old vampires can be, with platinum blonde hair swept into a perfect chignon and a dress that probably cost more than Emma makes in a year. "Victoria." Alexander's tone is polite, but noticeably cooler. His hand drops from Emma's face, but he doesn't step away from her. Victoria's green eyes flick dismissively over Emma before focusing on Alexander. "I've been looking for you. The consortium wants to discuss the European territories." "It can wait," Alexander replies smoothly. Victoria's perfect smile tightens slightly. "Can it?" Lord Ashford seemed to think it was urgent. Emma can sense the undercurrents in this conversation, the politics she doesn't understand. She takes a small step back. "I should let you..." "No." Alexander's hand finds hers, his fingers intertwining with hers. "Victoria, as I said, it can wait. I'm otherwise engaged this evening." The dismissal is polite but firm, and Emma doesn't miss the flash of surprise that crosses Victoria's face. Clearly, she's not used to being dismissed. "Of course," Victoria says after a moment, her smile now razor-sharp. "Though I should mention, darling, Marcus is telling quite the story about his former companion. Such a shame when mortals misunderstand their place, don't you think?" Emma's stomach drops. She can only imagine what Marcus is saying about her, probably spinning their encounter to make himself look like the victim of some gold-digging human. "I'm sure Marcus is painting himself in the best possible light," Alexander says, his voice dangerously quiet. He always does. Victoria laughs, the sound like crystal breaking. Well, yes, but when someone reaches so far above their station, what can you expect? It's almost cruel to encourage them, really. The words hit Emma like physical blows. Victoria isn't just dismissing her. She's suggesting that even Alexander's kindness is misguided charity. Excuse me, Emma manages, pulling her hand free from Alexander's. I need some air. She turns and walks quickly toward the French doors leading to the terrace, her cheeks burning with humiliation. Behind her, she hears Alexander say something to Victoria, in a tone she's never heard from him before, cold and commanding. But she doesn't stop to listen. The terrace is blissfully empty, the cool night air a relief against her heated skin. Emma grips the stone balustrade and takes several deep breaths, trying to compose herself. She came here tonight hoping to fit into Marcus's world, but all she's done is prove she doesn't belong. And worse, she's probably embarrassed Alexander by association. He was being kind to her, and she repaid him by creating a scene. Emma. His voice is soft behind her. I should go, she says without turning around. Victoria was right. I'm reaching above my station. Victoria, Alexander says, moving to stand beside her at the balustrade, is a centuries-old vampire who's forgotten what it means to be human. Her opinion is worth less than nothing. But she's not wrong. Emma finally looks at him. Look at you, Alexander. Look at how everyone treats you in there. You're clearly important, powerful. And She gestures helplessly at herself. I'm nobody. Alexander is quiet for a long moment, looking out over the city lights spread below them. When he speaks, his voice is thoughtful. Do you know what I was doing before I came here tonight? Emma shakes her head. I was in a boardroom for 6 hours, listening to vampires who've lived for centuries argue about territory disputes and blood rights and profit margins. Every word calculated, every gesture a political move. He turns to face her fully. Then I walk into that ballroom and see you standing there, completely genuine in your hurt and your dignity, and I remember what it feels like to have a real conversation. Alexander. I haven't laughed genuinely in months until tonight, he continues. I haven't felt interested in getting to know someone, really know them, in longer than I care to admit. You think you're nobody, Emma, but you've reminded me of parts of myself I thought I'd lost. His words are so sincere, delivered with such quiet intensity, that Emma feels tears prick at her eyes. That's very kind, she whispers, but it doesn't change the reality. I saw the way Victoria looked at me, the way others were whispering. I don't belong in your world. Maybe, Alexander says, stepping closer to her. The question isn't whether you belong in my world. Maybe it's whether I want to be part of yours. Emma's breath catches. What does that mean? Before Alexander can answer, the French doors burst open and Marcus storms onto the terrace, his face flushed with anger and what smells like expensive whiskey. There you are, he slurs slightly, pointing an accusing finger at Emma. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? Everyone's talking about how you threw yourself at Alexander Nightingale the moment I left you alone. Alexander goes very still beside her. I think you should leave, Marcus. Leave? Marcus laughs harshly. This is between me and my date. Your date? Emma finds her voice, anger finally overriding her humiliation. You left me standing alone in a room full of strangers while you went off with another woman. I was networking, Marcus snaps. Something you wouldn't understand. Do you think these events are about romance? They're about business, about connections. I brought you as a companion, not what? Emma demands, taking a step toward him. Not as someone with feelings? Not as someone who deserves basic respect? Marcus's eyes narrow. I brought you because you were different, exotic, but clearly you can't handle being around your betters without causing a scene. The words hang in the air like poison. Emma feels something inside her break, not her heart, but something deeper. Her last illusion about Marcus, about what she thought they had together. Exotic, she repeats quietly. like a pet you brought to show off. If the shoe fits. Marcus doesn't get to finish the sentence because Alexander moves faster than Emma's human eyes can track. One moment he's standing beside her. The next, he has Marcus pressed against the stone wall of the terrace, his hand wrapped around the other vampire's throat. I suggest, Alexander says in a voice like winter itself, that you choose your next words very carefully. Marcus's eyes widen as he apparently recognizes something in Alexander's face. Mr. Nightingale, I didn't realize... Didn't realize what, Marcus? The temperature on the terrace seems to drop 10 degrees. That the woman you've been insulting matters to me? That your behavior tonight has been noted by someone who has the power to make your very comfortable life very uncomfortable. She's just a human, Marcus stammers. Wrong answer. Alexander's grip tightens, and Marcus makes a choking sound. This human, Alexander says softly, has more grace and dignity in her little finger than you've managed in your entire pathetic existence. You abandoned her, humiliated her, and now you have the audacity to blame her for your own failings? Emma watches this exchange with a mixture of shock and something that might be vindication. She's never seen Marcus look scared before, never seen him as anything other than supremely confident in his own importance. Alexander, she says quietly, it's okay. Let him go. Alexander's silver eyes flick to her, and she sees something dangerous swimming in their depths. It's not okay, Emma. What he did to you, what he called you, none of that is okay. I know, she says, stepping closer to them, but he's not worth it. And I don't need you to fight my battles for me. Alexander studies her face for a long moment, then slowly releases Marcus, who slides down the wall, gasping. You're right, Alexander says, straightening his cufflinks with deliberate calm. He's not worth it. He turns to Marcus with cold disdain. You have 30 seconds to leave this terrace before I change my mind about letting this go. Marcus scrambles to his feet, shooting venomous looks between them. This isn't over, he mutters. Yes, Alexander says mildly. It is. And Marcus? If I hear you've been spreading stories about Emma, we'll finish this conversation. Privately. The threat is delivered so casually that it takes Marcus a moment to process it. When he does, what little color he has drains from his face. He opens his mouth as if to say something else, then thinks better of it, and hurries back inside. The silence that follows is deafening. Emma stares at Alexander, trying to process what just happened. You didn't have to do that, she says finally. Yes, I did. Alexander's voice is still slightly rough with anger. Emma, what he said to you was horrible, but not surprising. Emma wraps her arms around herself against the night chill. I've suspected for a while that's how he really saw me. Alexander shrugs out of his tuxedo jacket and drapes it around her shoulders. The fabric is warm with his body heat and smells like expensive cologne and something uniquely him. I'm sorry, he says quietly. You shouldn't have had to hear that. Emma looks up at him. This man who just defended her honor like something out of a fairy tale? Who are you really, Alexander? He's quiet for so long she thinks he won't answer. When he does speak, his voice is carefully neutral. Does it matter? It does if Marcus was right about me being out of my league. Alexander turns to face her fully, his silver eyes intense. Emma, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Marcus Delacroix is a trust fund vampire who's never worked a day in his life, and whose greatest accomplishment is inheriting a seat on a minor council. He has no right to judge anyone, least of all you. But you do? The question comes out more challenging than she intended. Alexander's mouth quirks upward slightly. Do I have the right to judge? Or do I have the right to defend you? Both. The right to defend you I'm taking regardless of whether I have it, he says simply. As for the right to judge, Emma, I've spent this entire evening getting to know you. You're intelligent, kind, genuine, and stronger than you know. Marcus spent weeks treating you like an accessory. Which of us do you think has a better understanding of who you really are? The sincerity in his voice makes her chest tight. You barely know me. I know enough, Alexander says, stepping closer to her. I know you work 2 jobs to put yourself through nursing school. I know you saved for months to buy that dress because you wanted to look beautiful for someone who didn't deserve you. I know you'd rather leave quietly than cause a scene, but you'll stand your ground when pushed too far. Emma stares at him. How do you know about school? About my jobs? Alexander has the grace to look slightly sheepish. I may have asked a few questions about Marcus's companion. Due diligence. Due diligence for what? Before he can answer, the French doors open again and Victoria appears, but this time she's not alone. She's followed by several other elegantly dressed vampires, including an older man with silver hair and an unmistakable aura of authority. Alexander, the older man says, his tone carrying just a hint of reproach. We really do need to discuss the European situation. Emma recognizes the power dynamics immediately. This isn't a request. It's a politely worded command from someone who's used to being obeyed. Of course, Lord Ashford, Alexander replies, but his tone is respectful rather than deferential. Though I believe the European situation can wait until tomorrow's scheduled meeting. Lord Ashford's eyebrows rise slightly. Can it? The council seemed to think... The council, Alexander interrupts smoothly, doesn't dictate my schedule. The statement hangs in the air, and Emma suddenly understands that she's witnessing something important. There's a subtle tension in the group of vampires, a holding of breath, as if Alexander has just said something significant. Of course not, Lord Ashford says after a moment, his tone carefully neutral. I simply thought, given your position... My position, Alexander says, his hand finding Emma's and intertwining their fingers, is exactly where I want it to be. Emma feels the weight of every gaze on the terrace. These vampires are looking at their joined hands like it means something she doesn't understand. Alexander, Victoria says, her voice tight with something that might be desperation. Surely you're not going to... I'm not going to what, Victoria? Alexander's tone is dangerously quiet. Choose my own companion for the evening? Decide how I spend my time? Or perhaps you're concerned I might actually enjoy myself for once. The silence that follows is profound. Emma can hear her own heartbeat, loud in her ears. Your Majesty, Lord Ashford says carefully, and Emma's blood turns to ice. Perhaps we might discuss this privately. Your Majesty? Emma whispers, the words barely audible. Alexander's hand tightens around hers. Emma? Your Majesty? She repeats, louder this time, pulling her hand free and turning to stare at him. You're the Vampire King? The confirmation is written all over his face, in the way his jaw tightens, in the flash of something like regret in his silver eyes. Emma, let me explain. But Emma is already backing away from him, Alexander's jacket sliding from her shoulders to pool at her feet. Oh my God, I'm such an idiot. You're not... I am! Emma's voice cracks. I'm exactly what Marcus said I was. Some pathetic human who doesn't know her place, throwing herself at... She can't even finish the sentence. The Vampire King. She's been flirting with the Vampire King. That is not what happened, Alexander says firmly, taking a step toward her. Emma, please... Don't. She holds up a hand to stop him. Just don't. This whole evening, you were what? Slumming it? Having a laugh at the ridiculous human who thought she belonged here? That's not... Your Majesty, Lord Ashford interrupts. Perhaps it would be best if we continued this discussion. Get out. Alexander's voice cuts through the night like a blade. All of you? Now. Alexander. Victoria starts. Now. The word carries such power, such absolute authority, that even Emma feels compelled to obey. The other vampires retreat immediately, Victoria shooting one last venomous look at Emma before disappearing through the French doors. When they're alone again, Alexander turns back to Emma, his expression desperate. Emma, please let me explain. Explain what? Emma laughs, but it comes out broken. Explain how you were entertaining yourself with the pathetic human? Explain how this was all some kind of joke? It wasn't a joke, Alexander says fiercely. None of this was a joke. Everything I said to you, everything I felt? Emma shakes her head. You're the vampire king. I serve coffee for a living. What could you possibly feel for someone like me except pity? Alexander moves faster than she can track, suddenly standing directly in front of her, his hands cupping her face. Love, he says simply. I could feel love. Emma's breath stops. What? I know how it sounds, Alexander continues, his thumbs brushing away tears she didn't realize she was crying. I know it seems impossible, but Emma, I have lived for over 3 centuries, and I have never felt for anyone what I felt for you tonight. Tonight? Emma whispers. You've known me for a few hours. Yes, he agrees. A few hours in which you made me remember who I used to be, who I want to be again. Emma searches his face, looking for deception, for the cruel joke she's certain this must be. But Alexander's silver eyes are completely sincere, almost vulnerable. I don't understand, she says quietly. Then let me show you. Alexander steps back, still holding her gaze. Emma, I am Alexander Nightingale, king of the North American Vampire Territories. I rule over 17 states and 3 provinces. I command the loyalty of thousands of vampires and control assets worth more than the GDP of most countries. Emma's knees go weak at the casual recitation of power. But, Alexander continues, I am also a man who has been surrounded by people who want something from me for longer than I care to remember. Every conversation is a negotiation. Every relationship is a political alliance. Every smile is calculated. He takes her hands in his, and she notices they're trembling slightly. Until tonight. Until you looked at me like I was just a man who caught you when you stumbled. Until you worried that you weren't good enough for me, instead of cataloging what I could do for you. Alexander, I don't want to go back to that world, Emma, he says urgently. I don't want to spend my immortal existence surrounded by people like Victoria and Marcus, people who see everything as a transaction. I want to be with someone who sees me. Emma stares at him, her heart pounding. I'm human. I'm mortal. Even if this isn't some elaborate joke, it would never work. We're from completely different worlds. Are we? Alexander asks. Because from where I'm standing, we're both just 2 people who found something real in a room full of pretense. You're a king, Emma whispers, and you're the woman who made me remember what it feels like to be human. Alexander's voice is soft but intense. Emma, I know this is overwhelming. I know it seems impossible. But I'm asking you to give us a chance. A chance at what? At everything. The French doors burst open again, and Marcus staggers out, clearly having consumed more alcohol in the time since their last encounter. Well, well, he slurs. The little coffee girl and her royal protector. Tell me, Emma, did you know who he was when you threw yourself at him, or was that just lucky gold digging? Emma feels Alexander tense beside her, but before he can move, she steps forward. I didn't throw myself at anyone, she says clearly, and unlike some people, I don't need to get drunk to deal with being rejected. Marcus's face darkens. Rejected? You think I'm upset about losing you? You're nothing, Emma. A nobody human who... Who what? Alexander's voice is deadly quiet as he moves to stand beside Emma. Please, Marcus, continue. Marcus seems to realize he's made a mistake, but the alcohol makes him double down instead of backing away. Who got lucky tonight? He finishes defiantly. But luck runs out. What happens when His Majesty gets bored with his little human pet? When he remembers that creatures like her are food, not. He doesn't get to finish, because Alexander moves with inhuman speed, lifting Marcus off his feet and pinning him against the stone wall again. This time, there's nothing gentle about it. I warned you, Alexander says, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of authority. I told you what would happen if you continued to disrespect her. Alexander, don't, Emma says, but she doesn't move to stop him this time. She's tired of being insulted, tired of being treated like she's worth nothing. You want to know what's going to happen, Marcus? Alexander continues, his grip tightening. You're going to apologize to Emma. Sincerely. And then you're going to leave this event, and you're going to tell everyone who asks that she is under my personal protection. Your protection, Marcus chokes out. My protection, Alexander confirms, which means that any insult to her is an insult to me. Any disrespect shown to her is disrespect shown to your king. Do I make myself clear? Marcus's eyes widen as the full implications hit him. You can't be serious. She's just... Alexander's grip tightens, and Marcus stops talking abruptly. She's just what? Alexander asks softly. Nothing, Marcus gasps. She's nothing. I'm sorry. I meant nothing. Wrong answer. Alexander's voice drops to a whisper. Emma? What do you think? Should I accept his apology? Emma looks at Marcus, this vampire who made her feel small and insignificant, who treated her like a novelty to be discarded when something better came along. She thinks about all the nights she made excuses for his behavior, all the times she convinced herself she was being too sensitive. I think, she says carefully, that his apology needs work. Alexander's smile is sharp as broken glass. I agree. Marcus, try again. And this time, remember that you're apologizing to the woman I care about. The emphasis on those last words makes Marcus go very still. Emma sees the exact moment he understands what Alexander is really saying, that this isn't just about tonight, isn't just about defending her honor. This is Alexander making a declaration. Marcus swallows hard. I apologize, Emma. Sincerely. I was cruel and wrong, and you didn't deserve any of what I said. Emma studies his face. The apology is clearly motivated by fear rather than genuine remorse, but it's still more accountability than she expected from him. Accepted, she says quietly. Alexander holds Marcus against the wall for another long moment, then releases him. Marcus slides down the stone, gasping. Now leave, Alexander says. And Marcus, remember what I said about my protection. Spread the word. Marcus scrambles to his feet and hurries toward the French doors, then stops and turns back. The council won't approve, he says, some of his old arrogance returning now that he's out of Alexander's reach. A human? They'll never accept it. Alexander's smile is cold. The council serves at my pleasure, not the other way around. If they have objections to my personal choices, they're welcome to voice them. Once. The threat is unmistakable. Marcus pales and disappears back into the ballroom without another word. Emma stares after him, then turns to Alexander. Did you just publicly claim me? Yes, Alexander says simply. If you'll have it. If you'll have me. Emma sinks onto a stone bench, her legs suddenly unsteady. I don't understand what's happening. This morning I was worried about making rent, and now the Vampire King is telling me he loves me and claiming me in front of other vampires. Alexander sits beside her, careful to leave space between them. I know it's overwhelming. Overwhelming doesn't begin to cover it. Emma looks at him. Alexander, be honest with me. Is this real? Or am I some kind of midlife crisis for an immortal being? Alexander is quiet for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. Do you want the truth? The complete truth? Yes. I came to this ball tonight because I was required to. I've been feeling disconnected lately, going through the motions of ruling, of existing, but not really living. I was considering stepping down, finding a successor. Emma's eyes widen. Stepping down? The weight of immortality, of constant responsibility, it was becoming too much. Alexander looks out over the city lights. And then I saw you standing there, so real and genuine in your pain, and something in me woke up. He turns to meet her eyes. So no, Emma, you're not a midlife crisis. You're the reason I want to keep living. The raw honesty in his voice makes her chest tight. That's a lot of pressure. It is, Alexander agrees, which is why I'm not asking you to fix me or save me. I'm asking you to let me choose you. Let me choose this, whatever this becomes. Emma stares at him. this powerful, immortal being who's looking at her like she holds his entire future in her hands. What would it mean? She asks quietly. If I said yes, what would that look like? Whatever you want it to look like, Alexander replies. We could take it slow, get to know each other properly. I could court you like you deserve to be courted. Or, Alexander's silver eyes are intense. Or you could come home with me tonight and let me show you what it means to be treasured by someone who has the power to give you anything you've ever wanted. The words send heat racing through Emma's veins. Alexander? I know I'm asking for something incredible, he continues. I'm asking you to trust me with your heart, your future, maybe eventually your humanity itself. But Emma, I swear to you, if you give me that chance, I will spend eternity making sure you never regret it. Emma looks at this man, this king, who has turned her world upside down in the span of a few hours. Everything logical tells her this is insane, that she should run as far and as fast as she can. But her heart is telling her something else entirely. If I say yes, she says slowly, if I take this leap with you, what happens to Marcus? To all the people who think I don't belong in your world? Alexander's smile is sharp and satisfied. They learn that what their king wants, their king gets, and they learn to respect what's mine. The possessiveness in his voice should probably alarm her, but instead it sends a thrill through her. After years of being treated as dispensable, the idea of being claimed by someone powerful enough to make it stick is intoxicating. Yours? She asks, raising an eyebrow. If you'll have me, Alexander says, his voice dropping to a low rumble. Emma, I want to be yours as much as I want you to be mine. Emma stands up, Alexander's tuxedo jacket still pooled at her feet. She picks it up, running her fingers over the expensive fabric. You know what the craziest part of all this is? She says. What? This morning, if someone had told me I'd be having this conversation, I'd have had them committed. Emma looks at Alexander, taking in his perfect features, his expensive clothes, the aura of power that surrounds him. But standing here now, looking at you, it doesn't feel crazy. It feels right. Alexander's face transforms, hope blazing in his silver eyes. Emma. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, she continues quickly. I'm not saying I'm not terrified. But Alexander, if you're willing to take a chance on me, then I'm willing to take a chance on us. Alexander stands slowly, as if he's afraid sudden movement might spook her. Are you sure? Instead of answering with words, Emma steps closer to him, rising up on her toes to press her lips to his. The kiss is gentle at first, tentative, but when Alexander's arms come around her, pulling her against him, it deepens into something that makes her forget where they are, forget everything but the feel of him against her. When they finally break apart, both breathing hard, Alexander rests his forehead against hers. Take me home, Emma whispers. Alexander's smile is radiant. Are you absolutely certain? I'm certain that I want to find out what happens next, Emma says. I'm certain that I've never felt about anyone the way I feel about you. And I'm certain that if I don't take this chance, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Alexander cups her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing over her cheekbones. Then let's go home. As they turn to leave, the French doors open once more, and Victoria appears with several other council members. Their expressions range from shocked to disapproving, to calculating. Alexander, Victoria says, her voice tight with barely controlled anger. Surely you're not actually leaving with her? Alexander's arm tightens around Emma's waist. I am. And Victoria? The next time you refer to Emma as her with that tone, we're going to have a very different kind of conversation. But the implications, Lord Ashford starts. The implications, Alexander interrupts, are exactly what they appear to be. Emma is under my protection, by my choice, and anyone who has a problem with that can address it with me directly. He looks around the group of vampires, his silver eyes challenging. Are there any questions? The silence stretches taut. Finally, Lord Ashford bows slightly. Of course, Your Majesty. We simply want to ensure you've considered all the ramifications." "I have," Alexander says firmly, "and my decision stands." He turns to Emma, his expression softening. "Ready?" Emma looks at the group of powerful vampires watching them, thinks about Marcus somewhere inside nursing his wounded pride, thinks about all the reasons this should terrify her. Then she looks at Alexander, at this impossible man who's offering her a future she never could have imagined, and smiles. "Ready?" As they walk toward the exit, Emma hears Victoria hiss something to Lord Ashford about temporary infatuation and damage control. But Alexander's hand is warm and solid in hers, and for the first time in her life, she feels like she's exactly where she belongs. At the entrance to the ballroom, Alexander pauses and turns back to the assembled crowd. When he speaks, his voice carries clearly across the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announces, and the entire ballroom falls silent. "I'd like you to meet Emma. She's going to be very important to our community going forward, and I trust you'll treat her with the respect she deserves." The statement ripples through the crowd like a shockwave. Emma sees Marcus near the back of the room, his face pale with what might be terror. She sees Victoria's expression twist with rage. She sees dozens of other vampires processing what their king has just told them. But mostly, she sees Alexander looking down at her like she's the most precious thing in his world. "Shall we?" he asks softly. Emma takes one last look around the ballroom where this incredible evening began, then up at the man who's changed everything. "Let's go home," she says. And as Alexander leads her out into the night, toward whatever future awaits them, Emma can't help but think that sometimes the best things really do happen when you least expect them. Sometimes being abandoned at a vampire ball is just the beginning of your real story.